Hello, hi guys. Welcome back to Danny's Academic Corner. If you are new here, hello, my name is Danita and I am based in Chicago. I'm a Fulbright student and I'm doing my master's in public health. So as you can tell from the title of the video, this is part 2 of a series that I'm doing about the Fulbright application. So in part 1, which I posted about a couple of months ago, I talked about my personal experience with the Fulbright process and how I got prepared for it and the lessons that I learned from the first application that I submitted, which was unsuccessful, and how those lessons that I learned I implemented when I was applying for the second time round. So go check that video out if you haven't as yet. But in the second part, I really didn't want to just come here and tell you what I did when I was putting together my application in terms of the study objective and the personal statement, because when you are putting together those documents, it's very personal to the individual. And the way I approached it may not resonate with everyone. So when I thought about doing this video, I decided to invite other people who are also Fulbrighters so that they can share their perspectives and their experience of putting together their study objective and their personal statement. So if you are currently applying for Fulbright or you are thinking about it, those two documents are the most important aspects of your application. So you want to ensure that you do your best and you give it your all when you are applying for Fulbright. And I know with my first application, I really didn't I kind of half-assed it, if I'll be honest with you. I didn't take it as serious like I did when I applied the second time around. So anyways, I don't want to waffle on for too long. I'm going to share the video with you guys where I sat down with my fellow Fulbrighters from South Africa and they shared their personal advice and lessons when it comes to putting together their personal statement and their study objective. So I hope you guys will find it useful and informative. I know I did. It was very beneficial. Even though I was successful, but what I learned from them, I know I can use those advice when I'm applying for something else in the future. So without further ado, let's go into the video. But Fulbright was the longest process ever, and I know when I was applying for it, there wasn't really a lot of information out there about it. So I think, yeah, just to give back and pay it forward, it would be nice to talk about these things and help our fellow South Africans or other, people in different parts of the world, because, there's so many Fulbrighters from various countries. So yeah, that's what we are going to talk about today. And thank you guys so much for making time, because I know it's the holidays, so really appreciate it. And yeah, we can begin. Maybe you guys can just introduce yourself and then briefly talk about what you are studying or doing in the US. Okay, Surab, you're the closest, so you can on my screen. You can go ahead.
Yeah. This is true. You and I were the first to join earlier, and so yes, my name is Saurabh Sinha. I am must be honest, I'm absolutely enjoying right now being away from South Africa. Not because I don't love South Africa, but because I am having a research sabbatical after many years. When Professor Zondi, when I was leaving the University of Pretoria, I missed my sabbatical because you lose it when you change between when you move from one uni to another. And so I've been working here. I got here on the 1st of December at Princeton. It's a fantastic school, one of the best, I think, in the world, and also the discipline I work in in 5G, or I'm writing right now on 6G telecommunications, which is kind of the next gen. You see, Tanita, now that you've kind of said that you're recording this, I'm very tempted to, like, you know, have a commercial on what I'm doing, but I'm going to pause here. I'm going to switch over to the, should I hand over to the next person? Danita, you want to do it?
Yes, please, you can do that.
Cool. I'm going to move to Nonsikelelo.
You're muted.
Sorry, thank you. So my name is Nonsikelelo Precious Mthethwa. I am a visiting student researcher at the University of Minnesota. And I am basically doing my PhD, finishing up my PhD, working, investigating like waterborne protozoan parasites in water and wastewater, and developing new methods, molecular methods for detecting them faster, quicker, and cheaper. So there's a big gap in South Africa of the bioinformatics skills. So I'm at the University of Minnesota to gain the bioinformatics skills so that I'll be able to analyze my results and also transfer the skills to other South Africans who need it.
Thanks, Nosi. It's like very interesting stuff. Can you hand it over to the next person?
Ati, you are the next person on my list.
All right, let me just put my video back on. I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm using the phone. Yeah, so hi guys, I'm Ati Mvukan. I'm currently here at the University of Maryland in College Park. And my research, I'm a student visiting researcher as well. And I'm doing a PhD. And my work is on waste to energy. And so far, I think I am having a different experience to Sina. I'm not yet enjoying my stay, in all honesty. So yeah, so that's basically what's happening at the moment. I'm having a different experience in terms of the academics, but in terms of the country, yeah, I'm enjoying many parts of it. I mean, I enjoy DC. DC is quite a very nice city. It has a lot. I'm a beer drinker, so it has a lot of beer gardens. So yeah, but in terms of academic, I feel, you know, I could have done a little bit better in terms of the background check, in terms of the way I was going, because it's quite a disappointment to find, you know, in the US to have a university with less equipped than where you come from. So that's my disappointment academically at the moment, is that I left a better equipped university. UNISA is quite equipped, and yeah. So at the moment, yeah. So yeah, academically not too well, but the city, I love it a lot.
Okay. Thanks, Ati. And you can hand it over to Pume or Maxine.
Pume, over to you.
Hey, Prof. Zondi, you're muted.
Muted.
Okay, thank you. Glad to meet you guys, and just to see at least familiar faces for a change. Of course, I'm Pume Zondi, and I am, you know, my research is on literature. I'm looking at intellectuals and scholars whose works are put on the margins, and I call them Black archives. And so my research is on that, and I'm trying to say they must be brought to the center. And I'm actually been making an example with the works of William Shakespeare, for example, that, you know, even though he lived so many centuries ago, his works are still relevant today. But I'm finding that the work that I'm dealing with is the author, especially that I had selected, who happens to be B.W. Vilakazi. He's also as relevant as the other people were, and yet he's not as you know, in the center in the literary tradition or canon as others are. So why do that here in the US? I wanted to know if they have similar individuals who at some point were on the margins and now are in the what you call mainstream. And if yes, how were they able to do that? You know, so I mean, the African Department of African American and African Studies at the university, at the State University of New York. What I can say so far, I mean, I'm almost halfway through, but I can say that already, even my own title, I'm actually beginning to question it, to critique it, you know, since I came here, because I went to give a lecture at another university, you know, a State University of New York at Albany. And the discussions that happened during that lecture made me realize that actually my title needed to have been a bit different than what it currently is. For me, that is actually a learning curve on its own, because, you know, I'm saying, I'm talking about these Black intellectuals as our Black Shakespeares. So I was like, why should I even be saying they are the Black Shakespeares? Why must I use Shakespeare as the measure, as the I mean, so I'm betraying myself. So I'm also, so honestly, that for me has been such an eye-opening, you know, factor, which now means that I'm shifting my topic a little. Yeah. So yeah, I'm going to talk more when the floor is open. But I just thought I would just share this up to now. So like I say, the main thing is something has changed since I came here.
Thank you. Maxine?
Last but not least.
Mm-hmm.
Hi everyone. So I'm Maxine Schaefer. I'm a visiting student researcher. I'm actually 1 month away from submitting my PhD thesis for examination. So the first half of what I've been doing in the States is writing up the final chapters and getting that ready for submission. My work looks at how reading develops in children in their first language and additional language English in South Africa. And specifically, I look at whether this development is language specific or language universal, and really interrogate whether theories that have been developed elsewhere in the world and on other languages are relevant in South Africa. And so if they are relevant, it helps us not use resources on more research to show the same thing, and we can better use resources in other areas. And if they are language specific, then I hope to identify which aspects are language specific and which require more research. So it's very exciting. I'm at Florida State University in Tallahassee, Florida. Go Noles! We're a big sports school and we just beat our rivals in Gainesville in the American football. So we're very excited. I would say that the town that I'm in is quite small. It's very similar to the town I live in South Africa, where people don't invite you places. You really have to make your way. But the international students community is very inviting, and people from all over are willing to share their experiences. In my case, I'm really enjoying the university. The level of resources is like nothing I ever imagined in my whole life. Another aspect of why I came here, not just to learn skills, was also to understand how the professors here mentor their students and work in interdisciplinary and inter-institutional teams. So I'm really learning a lot about that. And then, of course, also attending statistics training, which we don't really have in my field of linguistics back in South Africa. So far, I feel like I'm really on track to meeting the goals that I set for myself. But my expectations in terms of integrating with the people in the city and at the university are getting met much slower. But I'm really trying to put myself out there and really understanding how different cultures work. So that's been really interesting. And there's also an opportunity to attend like a certificate on intercultural communication, which as a linguist fascinates me. So I'll give you guys an update end of next spring to let you know how that goes. Yeah, so Danita, back to you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks, Maxine. Have you been learning Spanish, by the way? Because that's like in Florida. I know you're not in Miami, but like in the South, there are a lot of Hispanics, right? And
people are not bilingual here or even think about that. I'm going to Miami in May, so I'm hoping to practice some more.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, and then finally, myself, I am doing my master's in public health with a concentration in maternal and child health. So interestingly enough, I already have a master's at UKZN in population studies, but I felt like I didn't really get like the practical training. Like I left university thinking, okay, like what am I going to do with this degree? So coming to the US, and it's just been one semester, like there's a lot of like emphasis on like community engagement. We're learning about the communities in Chicago. And then next summer, we'll be doing an applied practice experience. So it's an internship for the summer, and I'll be at an organization. And yeah, I'll just be working for the summer. So I'm really excited to do that. And I feel like that's something we can like incorporate in our South African degrees, because a lot of students are graduating with a master's and doing their internship and earning like 4K with a master's degree. And I just feel like that's a huge injustice. So yeah, like it's been going well for me. I feel you, Maxine, on the thing of like, you really have to make the effort to connect with people, because as soon as class is over, people are rushing out of the venue. So if you don't like put yourself out there and ask people to hang out, then that's it. You're just going to be isolated. But I'm trying my best. I'm relatively social. So yeah, I try my best to just like go out with people. And I think one-on-one friendships, it's like the best approach. And then eventually find my own little community. So yeah, that's been my experience so far. So what I thought we'll talk about is mainly with the Fulbright application, right? Because I want us to help people. The meat and potato of that application was the personal statement and the study objective. And I could have gone on YouTube and just give like some tips and advice, but I'm just one person. And we all have like our different approaches to writing a personal statement and putting together an application. So what works for me may not necessarily work for Pume, but I mean, we're all here, so we must have done something right. So yeah, I'm just going to keep it like a very informal discussion, keep the floor open, and then yeah, ask you guys some questions and then just answer as candidly and honestly as possible. So yeah, first up, basically, what was the experience like in terms of applying for Fulbright? Like what was the process for you? What made you decide to go for it? And what was the process of applying for it? Yeah.
Can I?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, let me unmute. Okay. Right. As far as I'm concerned, I think that what is important is, you know, the fact that the applications open as early as January, but are only due as late as May. I think for me, that's a starting point to warn the people, to make the applicants aware that when the call comes out, if they really want to make it, they must not just look at it and be like, so many months, you know, because for me, you know, in the language of the young people, I'd say in Zulu, yo, iyasinyisa. You know, there's nothing in my, and I'm almost at the end of my career, but there is really nothing that I've ever found as intense and demanding and time consuming and frustrating and what is the word? You know, my popular word, which I used to use there, as heart palpitating as this application. So honestly, for me, the first advice is, do you want it? And so if the answer is yes, you know, the call is going to come out now, but work on it. You know, it's not something that you can just sit in 4 or 5 sittings and be done. This thing is like, I mean, I don't know if you know the other thing called the NRF, National Research Foundation.
Yep.
Which may be equally difficult, but at least that one, you are not competing with anybody. You are competing with yourself. You get what I mean? You're just saying, in this field, what is it that I'm offering? What is it that I'm doing better? You get what I mean? But honestly, you cannot not get it if you qualify and do things correctly. Whereas with this one, yo, gosh, yeah. But to cut a long story short, first of all, people must not take for granted the time frame that this is given. You know, I was, before coming here, I was reading something from a student. Maybe you must also check that one, from student in Argentina, you know, who was talking about, it just popped up, and you know, she was talking about her experience now that you know, her 9 months has come to an end from Argentina. It's a student, and you know, she was like, it took 10 months before she had the results. And honestly, I think this time frame thing for me is very important, that people are made aware that it might look like it's a forever time, but it's not. So that's the first point. Then I'm going to add when other people have said something.
Thank you.
But for now, let me just say, you know, hold it there.
I'm sure we all agree with what you said, because wow, it was humbling.
Well, let me go next. So I liked Pumi's message. I think that there is an old proverb that says that failing to plan is planning to fail. And I think that this application is one of those applications that really has to be planned quite well. So the approach that I had taken, which I think is also relevant to individuals pursuing a PhD, individuals pursuing a master's. So it is applicable, I think, to everyone. The first thing that I was looking at is that, you know, what is the research that I'm doing, and what is required to take that research level for me personally to the next level, but also what would then progress that body of knowledge at a global level. And that contestation was actually a very important and a rather difficult one for me, because I was looking at it in terms of progressing to the next level at a global level. The second part, that once you've kind of done that, is to identify the correct group that would be an enabler for that particular research strategy, if I can call it that. And so I looked at a couple of groups. I am familiar with the group here at Princeton University. So that made it a little easier to identify, but there are tools such as on Scopus that can be used to identify truly the best in the discipline. And then from there, I think the next step is actually to set up online meetings and have engagements, because the cultural fit, well, okay, I don't know what that is because you kind of have to adapt. But having an engagement with the individuals that might be shortlisted for enabling your next research phase, I think is important. So I had reached out to my host and just engaged on, what do you think? Is the timing good for you? And after that is to then develop the application. As Prof. Zondi was indicating, that it is a tough application. The NRF rating application that Prof. Zondi mentioned is perhaps another tough, difficult one. But the nice thing is that if one actually plans the Fulbright application well, especially for emerging academics, it can be an excellent feed into the NRF application in future. And so, like for myself, I'm going to be going to the next phase in my rating, and therefore for my NRF rating. And so I have therefore used similar lenses that is used for the NRF process.
Good.
So after having those engagements in terms of the cultural fit, what one does realize in the US particularly is that your host is likely to be extremely busy. They're writing grant applications almost all the time. Depending again on the time you're coming in, if you're coming in the July period, then you know that nothing might happen because it's summer holiday. So one has to keep in mind that the September period is when the universities start. So what I did was I said, hey, can I meet with your research group virtually or some others so that I have kind of someone who I can cooperate with in developing the grant application. But it depends. I'm a thinker that needs like input, and so a discussion like this will take my proposal to a new level or to a different level. Some people are much more desktop researchers, they sit on a computer and but I navigate my thoughts. Maybe like as Prof. Zondi was saying, that when you engage and think about the comparison between Black and Shakespeare, you actually realize the contradiction. It becomes obvious in hindsight, but navigating the conversation. But it also helps because so that's what I do. So what I did was I then sketched from this outline, a very rough proposal guideline, and then from there I started to kind of fill up the blanks in terms of my research. So my expectation from this sabbatical is one research, peer-reviewed research paper. And I must say that I already started to write it before I came here. So it helped, and I crafted the abstract as part of my my application process. So it already helped to bring about that alignment. And then the second thing that I'm also doing is a thought leadership piece, because I work in a very technical space of 5G, and when you're talking about 6G, it's coming from 2030 framework. So I need to craft something which will be an opinion piece that will enable for thought leadership in the discipline, and why technology can be an enabler, but also to look at the negative elements of technology. So in my Fulbright application, I also contested the pros and cons, including of my own application. There's a little debate in the application. Incidentally, when I was interviewed for the process, they actually talked about that debate. Maybe my writing could have been better because it had appeared a little like I'm not so certain about whether the technology. So I guess one needs to write in a way. Fortunately, I had the chance and the privilege of being in an interview, so I could discuss that, and therefore I'm here. But those are some of the points. But I think as the emphasis on starting the application as soon as it's there is really very, very important. And to actually see the writing as an art and expressing in a very concise way what is kind of the claim to fame from this expected period. So pause here, I can talk forever.
Yeah, the intentionality is so important because, yeah, if you don't, it's not really going to motivate you to work on an application for 5 months, for sure. And what about you, Maxine? Like, how was the application process for you? What would you say to potential applicants?
So for me, my thought style is to understand what is the purpose of each document in the application. So I had to read up a lot about it because I was like, what's a personal statement? I have no idea. So I somehow found something on the internet that said your personal statement must give the interviewers a little bit of insight into who you are. So it's not like a resume or a cover letter. It's more just like how I understood it anyway, a sneak peek into who you are as a person and how that's shaped why you're doing what you're doing. So that's kind of what guided me in my personal objective. And I started with, early childhood and then kind of went on to like where I am today. Then that was one page that I wrote, single spaced. And then for my research objective, for me, it wasn't extremely difficult because for me, I proposed an extension of questions that came out of my PhD. So getting other data and exploring the same research questions to see if they generalize. So that part, obviously, because it was in my PhD, was already conceptualized. So it was just a matter of considering what would that project look like in the States. And on all the ways that I found people talking about what they did is to justify why do you need to do this in the States? Why specifically in the States? What is it going to, like, why should we fund you? Is it something that you can only learn there? Is it the people that you can only work with there? Why are they the best people? And here, maybe my advice in retrospect is to be a bit more hands-on as a visiting student researcher. I read on the application website, don't reach out to people, like, we'll do it. And I would say definitely be proactive, reach out to the advisor that you want to work with and find out if it is feasible with that person or that group. So if I could do it again, I would have been more proactive, just to hit the ground running, like Prof. Sinha mentioned. Then in terms of the application, I applied kind of because my supervisor and I came across the email 3 weeks before the deadline, and she was like, oh, I think you should apply for this. So for me, it was a mad scramble, and I was also like employed full-time, like not in academia. So I had to carve out time for that. So it was quite stressful. So definitely, if you are thinking about doing the Fulbright, and I really think you should try, like if you know of a group that could fit your research, you could learn something and bring it back to the States, like put yourself in the running, don't opt out, like at least put your application in and see what happens. And obviously, I think to ensure more chances, like maybe apply earlier on in your PhD. I guess there's pros and cons, right? As a visiting researcher, if you go earlier on, you might have more chance to incorporate that into your studies. But if you go later on in the process, you've conceptualized your ideas better and you know where your gaps are. So as a visiting researcher, those are just things to think about. But definitely, if you think you don't qualify, you should just apply because you are good enough. Don't let the voice tell you you aren't good enough to apply, would be my major point there.
Thank you. Ati, what about you?
Ati, you are on mute.
Yeah, I was trying to unmute.
Okay.
Yeah, so for me, I think to start, let me start by this. I think I'm having a difficulty because of the approach that I had initially towards the application of the Fulbright. So one, I didn't know about it. I don't know, which is very strange for someone who's actually a lecturer in academia and doesn't know about Fulbright. So I didn't know about it. So when I received it through a colleague. And he says, can you apply for this? And then I looked at it. Okay, there are requirements I meet, so I might as well do it. So I made an application. Only when I got an interview, or got a call or an interview, then I started, so I need to know what this is about. So then I went and I started reading about Fulbright and going all over. So I think I might not be the only one who didn't know. So maybe there are others that may not know. So once I then got selected, then I had to pay attention and then go through the labor process. That's when I realized, okay, I think this is very serious. And then I became to take it much more serious. So then in that case, I made significant errors. The one part, although I've known where I want to go to the United States, I didn't really go into a background check as to whether that group will be fit. One of the things that I should have done more was to look at exactly the research output that you're putting, and then see what is it that that they've made contribution, and also what is it that you're planning to do next. And then also at the same time reach out not only to the professor, but also to past students, from previous, because if you read papers, the advisor has been there long and he has been having students before, and most of the students he has published work with. So reach out to those first authors that he has worked with. Oh, by the way, I intend to go to this group. How do you think it will? How's the advisor there? How is he as a because on my first day and I arrived, it put me off in a sense that when the first day I arrived, I expected to have a meeting and say, okay, welcome, and this is who is going to help you with this. If you need this is the building you must go to. None of that. The first thing he said when I walked into the door was, remember, I am not a train station. You cannot just come here anytime you want. That's the first thing he said in my first day in the US. So already it kind of created, because I was asking myself, should I stay? Should I not stay? When I went back to the hotel, should I stay? Should I not stay? So I feel like, you should do a bit of more background in terms of where you're going, not only just speaking to them, having a meeting with them, but also reaching out to other past students to find out how's the culture of that individual that you want to visit. It may be difficult, but at the same time, because I did it, I just looked at Scopus and say, who in my field publishes the most papers, or who has. So I then went with that, but I didn't really dig deep as to what are these publications that they are writing and how are they writing them, and then what is the difference between this paper and this paper. And then when I got here, I found things that it's not really what I would like to do, in terms of just writing papers, endlessly without questioning whether these things are making contributions. So that's a mistake I made. That's why I'm having difficulty. I didn't do enough background check when I made the application. I think that what Professor explained earlier, that you had to reach out to many times and have interviews and with the group and then have a discussion with them. I think that's the most important thing that I feel new applicants should do, and they should start early because it is a very exhausting application. And also, it's not difficult. It's if you honest in what you want to do, if you plan out your research properly, the application process is easy. It's just that it's exhausting in the terms that there's many stages that you have to go through, many interviews, and so that's exhaustive in terms of, unlike NRF where you just fill out an application, it goes out to various reviews and then come back and then you have one thing, yes or no. Whereas here you have to go through several stages, which I think in a way it helps you because it kind of polishes you as you go through the stages. So you, in the first time you were, maybe like me, we didn't know about Fulbright, and then the next time you get called again, it gives you time now to say, okay, fine, what is it that I want? And then you go to the next stage, and then from there, then you build up on that. So I think my experience is, to be honest, that I want to share is that do proper background check, and also have a very, when you hear this on your plan that you had, on your research objectives, don't deviate much from them, because I've been drawn to many different directions since I've been here. And at times I felt, uneasy to say, but my research objectives were, and then our relationship started based on these research objectives. And right now we are not even doing what I plan to do when I'm here. So I think that's one of the things that when you plan out your research objectives properly and then make sure you stick to them. Yes, there may be alterations there and there, but all those alterations must be to amplify or to make better what you propose and one that you want to come here with. So, and not to completely deviate. Yes, we can deviate, but as long as it amplifies your research objective and your research plan, basically. Especially for us who are doing PhDs, as long whatever we do has to modify and help us, reach that last level of finishing our PhDs. So yeah, so that's basically, Janita, that's basically very my experience. Yeah.
Thank you, Ati. Nosi, how did it go for you?
Okay, so for me, I think everything that everyone has mentioned, yes, but the whole process started with having a dream to have an exposure internationally. And before the Fulbright program, I've been applying for other opportunities and to see like what is needed. So I started volunteering, reaching out, doing community reach out and everything, those things that are mostly like needed. So when I saw the advert of Fulbright, I think I saw it firstly on the website and the university advertised it. And then I planned, I think on my phone calendar, I still have, even today, like alerts saying, apply for Fulbright, apply today, write the statement, reach out to university professors. So it started like that. When I saw it, I put it on my calendar and alerts every day. And then number two, I started modifying my CV. I gave people, can you please check if my CV is okay? I know I've applied to other jobs and I was successful, but now I'm applying internationally. So the standard needs to meet that. So I gave people, like I know that, and then asked them to please check and correct me. Remember one time I had an interview like with an international company and I failed that interview. But instead of being said, I was like, okay, I need to reach out to this person and give him my CV. And I asked him, how can I improve my CV, like for other opportunities? And then he looked at it, he was kind enough and was like, do this next time, you need to correct this. And my CV was corrected. I didn't get the job, but my CV was good. And my motivational letter was good for future applications. So it's even before I applied for Fulbright. And then I worked on my CV, and then we had like a workshop. Fortunate DUT arranged a workshop for people who wanted to apply for Fulbright, and they invited the people from the Fulbright office. Remember Susan was there, and some of the coordinators from Pretoria, they were there, and they explained the whole application process. And I remember I was so scared because I was not sure which category to fall under, because I was currently busy with my PhD and I was writing up my thesis. And I was like, which category do I fit in? Is it the starting a new PhD degree, or another master's, or a visiting student researcher, or a scholar? Then I asked the question during that workshop. I was scared, and they were like, you can apply, like, I think because you're still busy with your PhD, just apply for the student visiting researcher. And then from that point, I knew, okay, I need to focus on the requirements for a student visiting researcher. So I was not looking in other parts, like being a I was sure which program I fit in. Then I watched YouTube videos on what are the previous people from other countries, their experiences, and during the application, what they wrote, the statement, and everything. Then I reached out to my supervisors. I told them, this is what I need to do, and can you please recommend me for this? I told them even early, I think it was February or March, I told them about it, and even the recommendation, and I gave them the requirements. This is what they are looking for, because even when they recommend you, they need to be specific as well and state the things that are required in the Fulbright application. Yes, we have different qualities, like yeah, I think in that sense, so that they can mention those things that are specific or related to the Fulbright, that are relevant to the Fulbright program, not just anything. So I spoke to them, I gave them the application, and I asked them if they know any other people where I can do the bioinformatics like training. And then they suggested, and I also checked online for those universities. I reached out, I saw like emails, and I sent out emails to those professors and did some follow-up with my advisors and check, do you know anyone again? Do you know anyone who knows anyone in the United States? So yeah, that was the process. And then I checked out previous visiting student researchers who were successful in the Fulbright program. Then I reached out to them. Remember, there was one Dr. Vahed, yes, in my university. Then I reached out to the research office. The research office told me that there's this one person who was in the United States via Fulbright. And then I reached out to her, and she was so helpful. She told me, this you need to focus on. These are the questions that are important, this and this. And then I wrote everything down. Then I started jotting my application from the personal statement. Then now I had like a focus area, know where to focus on. So I think that helped me a lot. And the reminders on my phone being like, when my calendar reminds me, then I know I need to like stick to the plan, write something up until the last day. So by the time I submitted my application, I already had like one letter that invites me to the university, and the other ones were some options. So I think that's what kept me patient, sticking to the plan, and reaching out to other people for help, because you cannot do this whole process alone. I know people who, just like my friends I spoke to, that let's apply for this, but because they had no patience for it, and some of them they did it in the last minute, and some of them they thought they can do it on their own, they were not successful. So it's just a process that you need other people. Reach out, even if it's a silly question, just reach out to as many people as you can, and then just write it. Yeah, I think for now that's what I can say.
Yeah, thank you, Nosi. I like the organizational tip, because if you're not an organized person, like, this process will definitely teach you to get organized, because it's something that requires a lot of time. You can't just sit down and think, I'm going to get it over and done with. And I know I said an hour, maybe we can just do like a little bit more, like 10 minutes more, just to wrap up. So briefly, I'll speak on my little experience, and then I'll ask a follow-up question. So for me, I actually applied for Fulbright the previous year. And I applied for it because I had just finished. I didn't know what exactly I wanted to do next. And because of that, I think that reflected in my first application. It wasn't very strong at all, because it was just like, I'm just doing it for the sake of doing it. But the second time around, this was after COVID. So I was like, oh, you know what? Like, I feel like I'm in a better position to apply for it now, because I've thought about what I want to do, because the pandemic was a time to really sit down and reflect on my goals, what I want to achieve, how I want to achieve it. And then I thought, yeah, doing Fulbright now would actually help me to get there. And that helped me to put together a much stronger application, because I know that I'm capable. It's just that the intention is a very strong driving force in writing an application. And then I would say another advice for people, especially those who are doing the masters, don't get caught up in trying to put together fancy English and making it like academic writing, because at the end of the day, they really just want something simple. Can you clearly communicate what you want to do and how you'll do it? So initially I was like, you know, when you're in school and you write all these papers and you're looking at the dictionary for flowery language, I just had to put that out of the way and say, Danita, pen and paper, what exactly is it do you want to say to them? And then I made my bullet points and then type it up. So that was what helped me, just trying to convey a clear message and doing it systematically. So the first few weeks, work on the background stuff. The next week, get into the career goals. And then also just research, like you guys have already said, research the universities. Again, don't get caught up in the Ivy Leagues. Oh, I want to go to Harvard, Princeton. I mean, it's possible. But there are also there are hundreds of universities in the US, and I'm really happy where I'm at. It's exactly what I need. I've never heard of UIC before I came here, but honestly, I think I prefer it over a Harvard, because I'm getting exactly what I want, like maternal and child health. There's a lot of emphasis on community work, and yeah, I really feel that once I finish this degree, I'm going to be set up for a really good career in public health. So yeah, just don't get caught up in going to the big name schools for the sake of it. Be intentional about what it is you want to achieve and what school will help you get there. Okay, so we can definitely do another Zoom next year. But my final question, I wanted to ask you guys, what made your personal statements unique? What were the unique elements that made it Pume, or that made it Ati or Prof. Surab? Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Pume.
You know what? I actually said very little in the beginning, because I was just being very, very kind of general. But first of all, let me just say, I'm just so impressed, so impressed with each and everyone who has spoken, because honestly, this follow-up question is actually kind of, most of you have touched on it already. If there's anybody who didn't, it's me. You've touched on this now. And I think what, Nontsikelelo went very much in detail about how to go about this. I think so many points. It's good that you are recording this, because you will extract so many points from that. Maxine, the same. of course, Professor Sina, the same. And I actually liked so much also what Ati had to say, because you know what? I think that is so, so powerful, because now, you know, it makes me even understand why he has experienced the Fulbright the way he has. I mean, first impressions last. I mean, honestly, if I'm just feeling very, very discouraged and sad that anybody could talk like that. And those people, I don't care to who, I don't care. You know, the attitude, that was a very bad start, Ati. That was a very, very bad start, which unfortunately would have a very bad effect on you. You'll be surprised that everything that you've been experiencing have nothing to do with Fulbright per se. It's got everything to do with the very way you were received. You see, this is actually quite interesting. I also like, Danita, what you've said here and shared here, because it's a story of, you know, Fulbright is a journey, and there is nothing that you can say is a disgrace or it's an embarrassment or it's a what or that. You know, for me as well, this was the second time I tried it. The first time, you know, it was just a year before that, and it was COVID, and I'm really jumping for joy the fact that miss whatever happened, because if I would have had it last time, remember the people that came to the pre-departure thing?
Yeah.
How most of them were like so disappointed that they were doing everything virtually. Some of them never even saw the staff, the professors there, nothing. So honestly, you know, for me, I always say, you know, I'm a very strong believer that everything happens for a reason. And but now this point that in the beginning put me off was the fact that it ties up also with artists and whoever. I think somebody also talked about the university that you are going to go to research. So for me, I had not selected an institution. And because, I mean, you have always got to ask in order to improve, where did I go wrong? So for me, they said one mistake. And what was that mistake? You didn't select an institution to invite you. And I was like, you know, I really, really like what Nontsegela to say about never taking anything for granted. Ask. If you are not sure, ask. For me, I thought that if I don't select the institution, I mean, I wanted to show them that I'm as comfortable, I'm a free go-getter, I can go anywhere. You put me Iceland or Florida or wherever, I'm gonna survive, I'm a survivor. But now in the meantime, I didn't know that I was limiting my opportunities. Then I asked them, but now what about the proposal itself? Was it good enough? Was it strong? They said it was perfect. Letters of recommendations, they were perfect. However, just as Danita said, when I actually had a second look at it, I said to myself, no, there were some areas where I was not very strong, you know? Yeah. So I just want to say that the advice that I would give to the next person is never take anything for granted. Never think for the other person. Never say that, oh, you know what, let me make their life easy by asking them. Read what, because they also were not saying exactly, they were saying if you don't find, they didn't make it like clear that they want you to do it, but then if you don't, they will place you. There is that condition, but the way they put it, it didn't seem like really they wanted you to select your own. So just to read the fine print, never to assume anything. So for me, if I can summarize, say how I approach the whole thing, somebody used the word passion in this talk. You must have passion. You must want it, and in order to show that you want it, the way, and you mustn't lie. You mustn't try to be sophisticated, and just be yourself and just express yourself as you would. In other words, I mean, like any other interview, you are selling yourself, but selling yourself is not equivalent to lying, but just the passion must show in your statement. You know, for example, like where you come from, who are you? Where do you come from? And why do you think what you have in mind is important? And you mustn't have this mentality of desperation. Is not part of this game. It's not. It's just not. But it's about, you know, wanting to venture into new areas and to learn and to come back different, your perspective in life. I mean, recently I went to this, what you call Cleveland climate change thing. I mean, how would you associate me with climate change? Even myself, I didn't know that I could contribute so much. But I promise you, at the end of that conference, because I just looked at Ubuntu, which is and it was so interesting when the person who was helping me with the presentation, you know, the what you call this thing, the PowerPoint, said to me, what is Ubuntu? Is it a place or is it a person? Or I was like, you don't know what Ubuntu is. So I mean, it's like an African concept, philosophy, way of life, worldview. So in other words, you know, I came back from that enrichment seminar a winner, where everybody said, you know what, from this conference, out of all these presentations, most people said, what we're never going to forget is your presentation. Because it was something that we're hearing for the first time. And I wasn't going to make myself a guru in matters of climate change. So I just talked about Ubuntu, you know, in times of catastrophe, with specific reference to the floods, how people responded, how people contributed, how people never waited for gift of the givers or the government or this is, they were collecting this and that in the spirit of Ubuntu, just carry. So you get what I mean? So now I come back and the way now I'm so knowledgeable about issues of climate change, which prior to this, I never knew that I could contribute, but as it is, I know that it is going to be my other fields going forward. So just the determination, the passion, the I want to, and then whatever crisis you come across, then when you think of your passion, they will overshadow whatever. Yeah. So
that was powerful indeed. Like the passion has to shine. What about Ati? Like, what do you think made your personal statement unique? What made it Ati?
First, I must apologize. I had to go around to the kitchen because I was putting pizza on the oven.
It's all good.
And yes, and I had the stove on, so I had to rush before I burn the cheap houses of America. Yeah, I actually don't know. I don't know. I didn't think it was good, because I think one of the comments I had was, I think mine was too technical. I wrote what research I want to do. So there was not much difference between my research objective and really my personal statement, because my personal statement was taken from my teaching statement. So I just took teaching statement, put it into my application, and then edited it. So to be honest with you, it goes with what I said before, that when I first saw it, you know, I didn't really put the first time I applied. Only when there were comments from the Fulbright, when you get comments back, and then I started, now, okay, fine. Let me solve this. Let me fix this. So initially, so I cannot say what stand out, but they were quite impressed with what I intended to do in terms of when I got back to South Africa. Because I think more for me, it was when I come back, I think everything was about what I'll do with the skills I'll have when I come back. So that's why I'm saying there were two things that were conflicting, which I mentioned earlier, which I mentioned during my application, that my personal statement was too technical. I didn't write about myself. For example, Maxine spoke about from childhood, and I did not. I honestly did not. My teaching statement opens like this. I'm a teacher and a researcher. I'm a teacher and a researcher in waste to energy. That's how it opens. And then from there, it becomes technical. And then I talk about, I've published so many papers, I've done this, I teach so many modules, this is what I'm passionate about, this is what I intend to do. So everything was just technical. Nothing really spoke about me or anything. So to answer your question, I'll say I don't know, but it was good. It was good enough to earn me a sport. But yeah, it was very technical. It was about what exactly I want to do when I come back, and the type of research groups I want to come back. I want to start when I come back, and it basically spoke about my academic career, basically more than the background into where I am, how I got here. And I realized when I've been here, I went to a Fulbright, these DC Fulbright meetings on WhatsApp. So I got invited into some of the Fulbrighters at DC, and we went hiking in one of these hiking areas around here. And when we were having a discussion, one of the things that they asked me, okay, so how did I get here? And then I said, oh yeah, I got to where I am through government funding, through a lot of, because I wanted to make my background. So my answer was, oh, through government funding. But that's not what I asked. So they had to specify and say to me, but who helped you on the journey? It's like your journey to here. So they wanted to know the story behind, how you as an individual. And that's something that I've learned to kind of like learn here in the US, to talk about one's journey and how the difficulties one has overcome over the years and how they've shaped him. I've always been uncomfortable addressing these, talking about myself in that way. So that's why my statement was very empty, Danita, to be honest. It was just, I'm a teacher, I'm a researcher, and that's what I'm doing. So it didn't really speak much about, other passions I have in terms of life, and it didn't speak positively, I must say. Even though I read it now, because I was reading it recently. If I was choosing, I wouldn't choose me, because I feel it's not life. It's too technical. So it's something I need to change about myself, and it's something that even the new applicants should really consider, in as much as you can be technical, but I think you need to address the issue where what you want in life and how this will add positive to you as well, but at the same time to the community you come from and how you're going to benefit, at the university or about your family, but mostly yourself, because America is very individualistic in its setup. Something that I've learned, I've come to learn about America is very individualistic. You really need to speak about your achievements and talk about your story. I think they like to say, "What's your story?"
Oh yeah, so, they love that. You have to be the hero of your own story.
Hero of your own story. That's something that my statement does not have. It doesn't have the hero part of
But I also appreciate the pragmatic elements, because it's good to just show like, listen, I have these skills and this is how I will use them when I go back, because that was a huge part of the application anyway. Like how good are you at applying what you're going to learn in the States? So I think maybe that's what they saw, and then that stood out for them. So yeah, you never know. Maxine, I know you talked a little bit about, like you said, you talked about your childhood. Maybe you can like elaborate on the story you told.
Oh, that's very personal. And I love how I just wrote it in that message and I gave it to the hiring committee, the review committee. So I suppose the background that I gave in terms of my childhood is, so I'm the child of a South African and an immigrant to South Africa. And on my maternal side, they moved to South Africa for better opportunities because they didn't have money, they didn't have access to education. And so I've always been interested in education, like from that perspective of how do we improve access and how Was it that my grandmother, who didn't finish primary school, how was it that she was able to help me with my homework that I became so successful at school? So these are things I think about. And of course, for South Africa's history, I mean, many people have this exact same story. And my research really looks at helping, how can I contribute to making sure children in South Africa get quality education so that they can access better life outcomes, or, you know, just be more satisfied with what they want to do and have choice. So in my personal statement, this was really the thread that I weaved into my statement, starting with my personal background, how that has affected what I ultimately ended up studying, and as Ati mentioned, what I will do when I come back to South Africa. So another thing that comes with education is access. So global north versus global south, people in the north have more money, they can do more things. And so how do we make those connections between global north and south to make sure everyone has a chance? And so what I explained is that a big part of Fulbright, for me anyways, is making these connections with people in the global north, trying to understand from their perspective what is their view of the developing world, taking it back to South Africa and understanding, well, how do these groups of people work together? And it's been very interesting. I was also very lucky because of the time zone. I got to attend a virtual conference about big team science. And there's a lot of talk currently about how do you improve access to research, not just education, research for the whole world, not just those with resources. So yeah, I kind of, in my personal statement, I think if I had to say what stood out to them, hopefully I weave this golden thread of how my upbringing and my research interests and my plans for when I return all align. Yeah, so just to think about the coherence or how your message flows, and what is the one message that you want the review committee to know about you.
Thanks, Maxine. Prof?
Hey, if I have to use one word, and I'm going to pun with it, is complementary, with an E and with an I. I first, I think, pitched on who I am as a person, and how that, passion developed for technology, and why the aspect of digital, digital equity is such a key contributor to diminishing or reducing inequality. So cost-effective data for telecommunications, for example, is one angle. And I'm actually writing an opinion piece on that right now. The other part about complementary with an I is, I was laughing when Ati was talking, because in South Africa, we seldom talk about, I think there is with Prof. Marwala being at University of Johannesburg, we've learned a lot about Chivenda, and there's a Chivenda proverb that says the finger does not point at itself. And I won't even try and say it in Chivenda, although I've done it before. And so I think that what happens is that we don't always do it. We don't always say why we are so great in terms of what has been achieved. But I must say, because I've been in the US quite a bit in the past, I did indicate that this is what has made my work quite significant. And this is how it's going to make a difference at a global level. But I think that the personality aspect around when one returns, as was pointed out by others, on why will that difference be inclusive to others, and how will the work scale with others. In fact, we're already looking at a cooperation agreement. There's a program here at Princeton called Africa World Initiative, and it's a program that funds students at Princeton to go to South Africa. And there's a program called Princeton in Africa, which is a community-based project and program that also funds students from South Africa to come here, and vice versa. So I engaged with these individuals already. But those were some elements that I referred, that it's not only about being in the US, but also simultaneously setting up a program that will enable other programs to not only that are funded by Fulbright, but other initiatives and programs that will be an enabler for other individuals.
Thank you. And finally, Nosi.
Okay, so I'm just gonna be brief. My personal statement was personal, personal statement. So, but my personal story is very broad. So for me to narrow it, or for my story to be relevant to what Fulbright wanted, I had to go to the application on the requirements, what is required, and then tell my story in relevant to what they were looking for. For an example, the main aspect of it is cultural exchange. And another part is the gap, how can we fill the gaps in both in South Africa and in the United States. So my personal story started with my childhood, telling the story of how I grew up without parents, both my parents at the age of 2 years, and going to schools, public schools, where I think Prof. Zondi mentioned that public school, we learn like it's mostly Zulu and the resources are not there, and how I overcame those challenges, and how I became passionate about STEM. Started with trying to like asking myself why my parents died, why is everyone dying? And I started getting interested in wanting to research about these diseases, about public health, and using STEM and science. So in my personal statement, I showed my passion of science using those examples. And also getting to university, the challenges where we were different cultures, ethnic groups. How did I manage to interact with other people and communicate with other people, and develop relationships with other people from a public school where it was only Black people only, and then now at the university, there's different people. So in that way, showing cultural exchange, understanding other people, and respecting other people. And I then moved to my research, how the thing that I wanted to do in America, how is it a gap? Why is it important for me not to do it in South Africa and go to the United States to do it? What gap am I trying to fill? And how am I going to benefit the United States? And how am I going to benefit South Africa when I come back after the program? So I had to show all those things using examples of my life, not just mentioning that I got this award and then I got this award. How did I get that award? Where did it start? The things that I had to go through, the challenges and how I overcame them. Then I got this award. Then I got this degree. Then I got this master. So I had to tell a story like that. But I think another thing, my story flew from, I started it from personal, then went broad, until the last part of me coming back, going back to South Africa. How am I gonna benefit South Africa? How am I all of those things? So it's a personal story indeed, and you have to find a way to tell it in a flowing way, and be honest. I think that's another important. Don't try and put spice things up. Just be honest and show your passion and your plans and goals and dreams, and yeah, using real examples. I think that makes someone who's reading it believe it, rather than mentioning that I got this award, I got this award, I got this award. Tell a story, and that story will be believable. It is true, so it's gonna be easier for someone else to relate, understand it, and believe it as well. So yeah, I think that's what it is.
Yeah, it definitely is an art, because when I was writing it, I was like, this is definitely not like some academic paper. It's like an artistic piece of work. And briefly on mine, again, like I went for the story approach. And I think like I was in a unique position, being that I've lived in South Africa for 12 years, but I'm coming from Sierra Leone. So initially I was like, I don't even know if I'll get the scholarship because I'm not really coming from South Africa. But then I was like, you know what? I'm going to spin it. This is going to be my selling point, that I'm from 2 African countries, because I consider myself a South African now anyway. And I feel like whatever I learn in the US is not just going to benefit one African country, it's going to represent these both of these countries that have developmental issues. And then another thing I think that made my application a good one this time, specifically the personal statement, I realized the importance of intentionality. So this time around, I wanted Fulbright to know, this is my intention behind doing this time. This is what has transpired in my year, in my life in the past year. So I literally talked about like what I learned about myself during COVID, what I've achieved in this past year, how I've looked inward in terms of what I want to do. And then I connected back. So I started a bit small, then I connected it back to a larger picture in terms of, you know what, looking back on my life, all the other things that I've achieved, it's because it came out of intentionality. Me graduating summa cum laude, it wasn't a random thing. It was because I was intentional about working hard. Getting these awards came out of intention. So I feel like me pursuing this Fulbright, I'm actually going to give it my best shot, because this is something that I've pondered upon for a while. And because I have the desire and the will to do it, I'm going to achieve it. So I think that was basically how my story came together with my personal statements. Just, yeah, being clear about my intentions. Yeah. Yeah, so with that said, guys, I know we exceeded the hour, but thank you so much for making time to discuss and share your opinions and, yeah, your stories. Really appreciated it.
Hey, and thanks to Nita for setting it up. I think I speak on behalf of all of us, that I think that the work that you're doing is really going to help many others. And so thanks very much.
Thanks, I appreciate. And I wish you guys a wonderful holiday and hope you guys enjoy the break, not having to think about academics and all of that.
Thanks. And best
Bye,
for the season
everyone.
and New Year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy your holidays.
I will share the
Okay.
recording on
Bye-bye.
YouTube. I'll do my edits and all of that.
Okay, I'm sure you guys found that very informative and very useful. If you have any questions about what was discussed, please do not hesitate to leave your questions or your comments in the chat. I will be sure to respond, or even if I can't and you have questions for the other guys that were on the panel, just leave them and then I will put you in touch with them or direct your questions to them. Okay, so until the next video, I will see you guys and take care of yourselves. Bye.